My parents, Malcolm and Abigail, have always had a favorite. And it's not me. My brother Connor was the athlete, the charmer, the one who got college paid for. Connor totaled a car at 17 and got a replacement that week. I got a used bike for my 16th birthday because I needed to learn responsibility first. Every family dinner was about Connor's games, Connor's girlfriends, Connor's future. I was the afterthought. I'm 23 now. I moved into my parents' basement 3 years ago after my apartment fell through, and they never let me forget it. I've been paying them $400 a month rent. I work full-time at a but to them, I'm the failure who couldn't launch. 3 weeks ago, Connor sent me a link during my lunch break. Text said, LMAO, bro, you're famous now. I clicked it thinking it was some gym fail video. It was an audio clip from a local morning radio show. The segment was called Worst Kid Competition, where parents call in and trash their children for prizes. Okay, guys, we need to talk about something real quick before we even get into what these parents did. Worst Kid Competition. That's the name of the segment. Some radio producer sat in a meeting and pitched, what if parents publicly humiliate their children for prizes? And everyone in that room said, yes, greenlight this. And thousands of parents called in willingly. We're not even at the betrayal yet, and I'm already losing faith in like 3 different institutions. My mother's voice came through using my full name. She told 20,000 listeners I'm 23, live in their basement, can't keep a girlfriend, can't keep a job, can't even keep my room clean. My dad, Malcolm, grabbed the phone and said he coaches Little League, and those 9-year-olds have more potential than his own son. The host asked if I was disabled. My mom laughed and said, no, just disappointing. They won a $500 gift card. The clip got 12,000 downloads. Someone at work shared it in our group chat. By Thursday, my whole shift knew. My supervisor, Lynette, asked if I was okay. I said yeah and went back to loading pallets. 20,000 listeners, 12,000 downloads. Coworkers sharing it in the group chat. Like, imagine clocking in for your shift. You're just trying to get through Wednesday, and your colleague walks up like, yo, isn't this your mom calling you a disappointment? This man had to load pallets while his entire warehouse knew his parents sold him out for a steakhouse gift card. Not even cash, not a vacation, a gift card. They put a price tag on their son's dignity, and it was $400 less than what he pays them in rent. And Connor sent it with, Lamau, bro, you're famous now. Brother of the year over here, treating his siblings' public humiliation like a mean drop. That tells you everything about this family dynamic. Connor isn't just the favorite. He's been trained to see his brother as entertainment. Then my girlfriend Cora heard it. We'd been together 8 months. She didn't tell me she'd heard it, just started acting distant. Saturday, she came to my parents' house, walked down to the basement, and said she couldn't do this anymore. She felt embarrassed being with someone whose own parents think so little of them. I asked if she was breaking up with me over a radio segment. She said it wasn't the segment, it was everything the segment confirmed. She left. My mom heard through the floor vent. When I came upstairs, she looked at me and said, see, even she figured it out. I smiled and went back downstairs. Here's what my parents don't know. I haven't actually lived in their basement for 14 months. I moved out quietly, kept paying the $400, kept clothes there, showed up enough they never questioned it. I have my own apartment. I've been promoted twice. I have savings. Why the act? Because I knew something like this was coming. They've humiliated me my whole life, and I've been waiting for them to cross a line public enough that I could respond without looking like the bad guy. That radio show was the line. Connor is getting married in 6 weeks. The whole family is involved in planning. My parents have been bragging to everyone about the wedding. They have no idea what's... I'll update after this week. This man has been playing 4D chess for 14 months. He's been paying rent on a decoy basement like it's a subscription service for revenge. Most people would have snapped, would have had the blow-up fight, would have given their parents the satisfaction of calling them dramatic and unstable. But no. This guy understood something most people don't learn until they're 40. Toxic people will always rewrite the narrative to make themselves the victim, unless you let them create undeniable public evidence first. He waited. He documented. He let them hang themselves with 12,000 downloaded witnesses. And now there's a wedding coming. The whole family's watching. The stage is set. I am seated. Let's go to Update 1. Update 1. Context from comments first. Many asked why my parents treat me this way. I was an accident. Mom got pregnant when Connor was 8 and had just returned to work. She's told me multiple times I derailed her career. Dad was done with babies by then. Connor was planned and celebrated. I was tolerated. That's the dynamic. Saturday, I drove to my parents' house, let myself in with my key. Mom was cooking breakfast, Dad reading his tablet. Mom said, "Oh, you're up early for once." She didn't know I'd driven from my own apartment across town. I sat down and asked how the steakhouse dinner was. Dad looked confused. I said the one they won from the radio contest. Mom stopped stirring. Dad put down his tablet slowly. Mom tried playing it off, said, "It was silly radio entertainment. Hosts encourage exaggeration for laughs." Dad said, "They didn't mean any of it. Those shows are fake anyway." I asked which part was fake. The disappointment part? 9-year-olds having more potential than me? The host asking if I was disabled and Mom answering, "No, just disappointing." 12,000 people downloaded it, including my coworkers and my ex-girlfriend who dumped me over it. Mom looked annoyed like I was being dramatic. Said, "Cora was looking for an excuse anyway." Dad said, "I need thicker skin." I said they broadcast my personal information to thousands of strangers for a gift card. Mom said, "You needed a grill for Connor's engagement party, and I should be happy contributing to my brother's celebration." You should be happy contributing to your brother's celebration. I literally cannot. Let me make sure I understand this correctly. They publicly humiliated their son, cost him his relationship, made him a joke at his workplace, and he should be grateful because the gift card bought a grill for Connor's party. Every single response from these parents is a masterclass in how narcissists operate. It was entertainment. You need thicker skin. Cora was looking for an excuse anyway. Notice how not one response is, "We're sorry, we shouldn't have done that." Not one. They're not apologizing because in their minds, they didn't do anything wrong. In their reality, their son exists to serve the family narrative, and the family narrative is about Connor. Always Connor. I told them I won't be at the engagement party or wedding. Dad laughed. I said I'm also moving out by month's end. Mom said, "Fine, be dramatic." Then I told them I already contacted Lynette's parents. Told them to check the radio show archives. Her dad, Paul, is a deacon at their church. Very traditional family, very concerned about reputation. Mom grabbed her phone immediately. I left. Connor texted 6 times that night asking what I told Lynette's parents. I replied one word, everything. Sunday, Connor showed up at my parents' house looking for me in the basement. Mom had to tell him he wasn't there. He called demanding to know where I was. I told him I have my own place and have for over a year. He went quiet, then asked, why I'm trying to destroy his wedding. I asked why he sent me that clip with a laughing emoji instead of defending me. He said, "It was just a joke." I said, 12,000 downloads isn't a joke. Why are you trying to destroy my wedding? Bro, why did you send the clip with a laughing emoji? Why did your parents need a grill so bad they auctioned off their son's reputation? Everyone in this family wants to trace the consequences back to the person reacting to the mistreatment, never to the mistreatment itself. Classic. And Connor showing up to an empty basement? That's cinema. That's poetry. For over a year, this man watched his family dismiss him, mock him, collect rent from him, while he was building a whole separate life they knew nothing about. They thought they knew him. They had no idea who they were dealing with. He said Lynette's parents are now questioning whether she should marry into our family. Her dad, Paul, called my parents about values and character. Mom cried trying to explain, "It was entertainment." Paul said, "Entertainment at your own child's expense shows character." Connor said if his wedding falls apart because of me, he'll never forgive me. I said I've waited 23 years for anyone in this family to consider my feelings, so maybe we're even. Then he told me something I didn't know. My parents have been telling extended family for years that I have developmental delays. That's why I live in the basement. That's why I can't hold jobs. They've been using me as a sympathy story at church functions for years. Lynette's mom mentioned it to Connor, confused about why I seemed completely normal when she met me at Christmas dinner. So they've been telling people I'm mentally disabled for years to explain why I'm not as successful as Connor? This changes everything. I have more calls to make. I am sitting here with my jaw on the floor. They invented a disability. They went to church functions, family reunions, sat across from relatives at Thanksgiving, and told everyone their perfectly healthy, fully employed son had developmental delays. Not because they were confused, not because they misunderstood something, because it was easier than admitting they just didn't like him as much as Connor. They weaponized disability as a cover story for their own cruelty. They made themselves into martyrs. Oh, it's so hard raising a special needs child while Connor thrives. While their actual son was out there working full-time, paying them rent, living a completely normal life they couldn't be bothered to notice. These people belong in a psychological case study. Connor knew. He had to know. And he let everyone believe it because being the good son helping his struggling family was a better look than being the favorite of two narcissists. This family is rotten. Update 2. Now. Update 2. Things escalated fast. I'll try to keep this organized. After finding out my parents have been telling people I have developmental delays, I started reaching out to extended family. My Aunt Cora on my dad's side, my uncle on my mom's side, a few cousins I haven't talked to in years. I asked them directly what my parents told them about me. The answers were worse than I expected. My aunt said my parents told her I was diagnosed with something when I was a teenager that affected my ability to function independently. That's why I never left home. My cousin said my mom cried at a family reunion 3 years ago about how hard it was raising a special needs child while Connor thrived. My uncle said my dad once asked him for advice about group homes because they were worried about what would happen to me when they got older. None of this is true. I don't have any diagnosis. I never have. They invented an entire disability to explain why I wasn't Connor. Group homes. They were out here asking relatives for advice about group homes for their completely neurotypical, fully independent, employed adult son. Mom was crying at family reunions about the burden of raising him. Crying! Performance tears for a fake tragedy they invented. And here's what kills me. While all this was happening, this man was just living his life, going to work, paying bills, having relationships, completely unaware that his entire extended family pitied him for a condition he doesn't have. Every weird interaction suddenly makes sense. Every time a relative talked to him a little too slowly, every time someone seemed surprised he could hold a conversation, it was because his parents had been running a years-long disinformation campaign against their own child for sympathy points at church. I screenshotted all these conversations. Then I made a group chat with every family member I'd contacted and wrote out the truth. I'm 23. I work full-time. I've had my own apartment for over a year. I have no developmental issues, and my parents have been lying about me for years. I attached the radio clip so they could hear for themselves how my parents really talk about me. The responses came fast. My aunt was furious, but not at me. My uncle said he felt sick for believing them. My cousin asked why I didn't say something sooner, and I told her I just found out myself. Then Connor called. He was panicking. Extended family had started calling my parents, asking what was going on. Lynette's parents had spoken to my aunt. The wedding is in 5 weeks, and now both families are in chaos. He said I was tearing apart everything he'd worked for. I asked him what exactly he worked for, because from where I stand, he got handed everything, while I got used as a prop for sympathy. He said I don't understand how hard it is being the successful sibling. He said our parents put all their expectations on him, and he had to perform constantly, while I got to just exist without pressure. I told him he got a car at 17, and I got a used bike. He got college paid for, and I worked nights to afford community college. He got celebrated, and I got called a disappointment on the radio. He went quiet for a while, then said, "Maybe our parents messed up with both of us in different ways." I said, "That's not my problem to fix. You don't understand how hard it is being the successful sibling." Connor, my guy, my brother in audacity. You got a car when you crashed your first one. You got college paid for. You got every family dinner centered around your life. And you're sitting here trying to trauma trade with the brother who got a used bike and a fake disability invented to explain why he isn't you? Nah. This is what happens when golden children get their first taste of consequences. Suddenly, they want to find common ground. Maybe our parents messed up with both of us in different ways. That's not accountability. That's negotiation. He's trying to spread the blame thin enough that nobody has to actually hold it. And OP's response, "That's not my problem to fix." That's boundaries. That's growth. That's a man who finally understands he's not responsible for managing the emotions of people who never managed his. My parents have been calling me nonstop. I counted 47 calls from my mom and 31 from my dad just on Wednesday alone. They showed up at my apartment complex Thursday morning. I don't know how they got my address, but they were in the parking lot when I left for work. My mom was crying, saying, "I was destroying this family." My dad said, "I needed to make this right before the wedding, or they'd have nothing left." I told them they had a $500 gift card and that should cover their losses. My dad grabbed my arm and said, "This isn't a joke." I said, "Neither was the radio show." I got in my truck and drove to work. Now here's where it gets interesting. Lynette messaged me directly on Instagram last night. She said she's not sure she can marry into a family that treats its own children this way. She asked me to meet her this weekend to talk. I haven't responded yet. Connor's wedding might actually fall apart, and my parents are finally understanding what it feels like to be humiliated in front of everyone who matters to them. But I'm not done yet. You have a $500 gift card. That should cover your losses. Iconic. Legendary. Put it on a t-shirt. This man is operating with surgical precision. And Lynette reaching out? She's doing her due diligence. She's about to marry into a family, and she just found out they've been running a propaganda campaign against one of their own children for years. Of course she has questions. Of course she's reconsidering. If they'll do this to their son, what will they do to her? What will they tell people about her kids? Lynette isn't being dramatic. She's being smart. And the parents showing up at his apartment, crying, grabbing his arm, that's not remorse. That's panic. They're not sorry they hurt him. They're sorry it's finally costing them something. Final update. I met Lynette at a park near her parents' house on Saturday. She wanted to talk somewhere neutral, away from both families. We sat on a bench by the baseball fields, and she asked me to tell her everything from the beginning. I told her about growing up as the accident kid, about being compared to Connor every day, about the radio show and the 12,000 downloads, about my ex leaving because of it, about finding out my parents told everyone I was developmentally disabled. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said Connor never told her any of this. She said my parents always talked about me like I was a burden they were graciously carrying. She said at Christmas dinner my mom pulled her aside and warned her that I might act strange and not to take it personally. Lynette said she just thought I was shy. She asked me if I thought Connor knew about the disability lies. I told her he definitely knew because he never corrected anyone. He let them believe it because it made him look better by comparison. The golden son taking care of his struggling family. Lynette was quiet for a while. Then she said she loved Connor, but she couldn't marry into a family that operates this way. She said her dad, Paul, had already told her she needed to seriously reconsider. She said she'd been ignoring the red flags because she wanted the wedding and the life they'd planned. I told her that wasn't my decision to make, but I also wasn't going to pretend everything was fine just to keep the peace. She thanked me for being honest and left. Lynette sat with a stranger in a park and let him explain 23 years of family dysfunction, and she listened. No defense of Connor. No, but he's different with me. No, I'm sure it wasn't that bad. She listened, processed, and made her own decision. That's emotional maturity. That's someone who understands that how a family treats its most vulnerable member tells you everything about who they really are. And mom warning Lynette at Christmas that OP might act strange? Still running the con, still protecting the narrative. Even at family gatherings, they couldn't stop managing perception. Lynette didn't leave Connor because of OP. She left because she finally saw the family clearly, and she didn't like what she saw. That night, my parents showed up at my apartment again. This time, Connor was with them. My mom was crying before I even opened the door. She said Lynette had called off the engagement that afternoon. She said my dad had to cancel the venue and they were going to lose the deposit. She said family members were calling non-stop, asking questions, and she didn't know what to tell anyone anymore. My dad tried a different approach. He said, "We could fix this if I just told everyone I exaggerated. If I told Lynette's family I was angry and made things sound worse than they were." He said, "Well, families fight, and then they forgive, and we could go back to normal." I asked him what normal looks like. Me in the basement paying rent while they tell everyone I'm disabled? Me missing holidays because they're embarrassed to have me around Connor's friends? Me being the punchline for a $500 gift card? Connor finally spoke. He said he was sorry. He said he should have defended me when the radio clip came. He said he didn't realize how bad things had gotten. I told him he didn't realize because he never had to. He got to be the success story while I got to be the cautionary tale. And now that his perfect wedding is gone, he suddenly wants to apologize? My mom said, "I was being cruel." I told her I learned from the best. Tell everyone you exaggerated. That's their solution. Not apologize, not change behavior, Just get the victim to recant so they can go back to the system that benefited them. Families fight, and then they forgive. No. Families fight about where to go for dinner. Families fight about who forgot to call grandma on her birthday. Families don't invent disabilities and broadcast their children's personal information to thousands of strangers. And Connor's apology? I didn't realize how bad things had gotten. Bro, you sent the clip with a laughing emoji. You were in the house while your parents collected sympathy for raising a special needs child. You didn't not realize. You didn't care. There's a difference. The apology only came when his life was affected. That's not growth. That's consequences. They left around midnight. My phone has been blowing up ever since. 175 calls between the three of them in 9 days. I haven't answered any. The wedding venue deposit was $8,000, non-refundable. My parents put it on their credit card, expecting to pay it off after relatives gave cash gifts. Now there's no wedding and no gift. Extended family is mostly sided with me. My aunt told my mom she should be ashamed. My parents called me a disappointment on the radio for $500. It cost them their son's wedding, their family reputation, and their relationship with me. I'd say we're even.